I don't know how many high schoolers could get programming jobs, so I was very fortunate. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
I made sure to like make as much of that as I could because I know like not everybody could do it. And that same
Mhm.
summer, I actually applied for a job at Starbucks and they denied me. So I was like, well, I guess I'll take the programming job.
That's
And that was
funny.
probably
You can't be a
probably the better decision. But it
so
turned out
yeah.
that a few days later they announced that they were closing their doors. So at the time, that was the last developer conference for iOS and Swift in the United States. So I was like, that's not cool.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the iOS Dev Podcast. In this episode, we have Josh Holtz with us. Josh and his wife are the organizers of the Deep Dish Swift conference that takes place in Chicago. Josh is also a senior software engineer at RevenueCat, and he's a lead maintainer of Fastlane. I hope you guys enjoy.
How did you get into programming?
I got into programming back when I was in high school. My dad is actually was a software developer. He's retired now. So I've been around computers and software my entire life. I was actually interested more in like a graphics art or accounting kind of career at first, but my high school offered some programming classes that I could start taking my sophomore year. So my dad suggested I take one, and I was like, okay, it sounds interesting. So I signed up for the first one, which was Visual Basic 5, which I don't know if many people still know what that is. But it was part of like, I think now Visual Basic is part of .NET, but it's kind of like this nice little drag and drop kind of thing that was very easy to use, and it was a good first programming experience. Like the first day of
What
using
kind
it,
of
I was
things did you
like,
build? Oh yeah.
the first thing was just a button that changed text, but like it was something that you could get working and understand within like the first 10 minutes. So like it was cool to actually be like, okay, like I could make this change, make things happen. And after that first day, I was like, this is it. Like I knew like that was what I wanted to do, which seems really crazy like thinking about it back then, but like it just clicked. It was fun, it made sense. So I had a semester of Visual Basic 5. We ended up making like games. I think I made like a horse racing kind of thing where like horses would move across the screen at different speeds and you could bet on which one you wanted to win. So it was fun to make this stuff. I think I made some like form utility tools. And then I wanted to continue on. So the next semester then was HTML, JavaScript, and CSS. But that was like,
Around what years was this?
that was 2004. 2004. Yeah, 2004, I think.
Yeah.
So that was like, I don't even know if jQuery was a thing then or was it just starting out. Like it was like pretty raw HTML4 JavaScript stuff. That was fun too. And then after that, there was a second year, a complete year of Java. So I did Java for a year and then I was maxed out. But I still wanted to do more programming classes. So I actually did an independent study of Java my senior year. So coming out of high school, I had three years of programming classes, and then I was also still doing stuff at home on the side for fun. So like I had a Ubuntu machine where I was doing Linux stuff on there, destroying that. I had my own server that ran like PHP and MySQL, so I was doing that on the side. So I got a lot of my high school years and my extra time was spent just doing programming because I thought it was fun.
And at the time I don't think programming was looked at as cool yet, right? Or
No, my classes in high school had like maybe 10 people in them. And when I was picking out what I wanted for a degree, I wanted software engineering. And at the time, there were only like 10 schools in the entire US that offered a software engineering degree. So like computer science was around for a while, obviously. But like the software engineering being its own thing was was new, and yeah, there was not a lot of people who were interested in development at the time. So it was kind of a fun time to learn too, because like there wasn't a lot of material online. I think I owned 15 programming books that I read from, copied examples from. So it felt like a very different time than how to learn right now.
Yeah. And was there like any online communities that you would go to, or was it with friends that you would talk about it, or you were just doing this all alone?
Let's see. In I had 2 friends in my high school that I think I could like talk development with. One of the guys actually gave me my first Ubuntu disk, which was Ubuntu 6.04. Which anybody who is not familiar with that, it's a Linux distribution. So I installed that over Windows on one of my computers, and I learned a lot from that, and he helped me out. So yeah, I had two or three friends that I could talk development with. But my dad was also a developer at that point for 20 years. So I talked with him a bunch about that stuff too.
What kind of development did he do?
So he worked for a banking company. So he started off doing, I think, COBOL, which that was way back in the day. But then he ended up doing Java for a majority of his career. And I actually got to work with him for 4 years. Before I started college, I actually got a development internship, just because I had 3 years experience, and my dad also worked there, which helped. But so I basically I started my first programming job right after high school, doing Java. I don't know if I pushed anything really big to the banking world then. I think I was doing more like internal development tools, which makes a lot of sense now why I enjoy development tools. So I was at that job for 4 years. I was on like the mobile banking team, but more from like the back end perspective, and I never really touched any front end mobile. And at that time, mobile was like banking through text messages, which is also very weird.
Yeah. Damn, that's so cool about like programming in general, that like straight out of high school you're able to get a job.
Yeah, it was weird. Like it was probably like, I don't know how many like high schoolers could get programming jobs. So I was very fortunate. Like I made sure to like make as much of that as I could, because I know like not everybody could do it. And that same summer, I actually applied for a job at Starbucks, and they denied me. So I was like, well, I guess I'll take the programming job. That was probably
you can't be
probably the better decision. So I mean, I didn't have a choice. So I'm just glad that happened. Yeah.
That's funny. You can't be a barista, but you could be a programmer.
Here I am. So I guess if I would have got the coffee job, I'd probably be a coffee expert now or something. I'm not quite sure.
And wait, were you going to school at the same time, or were you able to like skip school, or like not school but college?
No. So I had a summer of the internship, and I went to college after that for software engineering. I went to the Milwaukee School of Engineering, which is where I was from. So luckily, one of the 10 schools that had software engineering was right down the street. So during that first summer of college, I still had the internship, but I would only like work during my breaks. But then during my other 3 years of school, they actually allowed me to work remote, which was kind of cool now that I think about it. So like I actually worked. I worked remote for 3 years, like from my dorm, for them. And I would go in during the summers and breaks as well.
Dang. Then you were like ahead of the game. you were
ahead
of the game, like working remote.
I loved computers a ton. Yeah, I couldn't get enough. Yeah, it was. I'm glad I had that passion because it definitely affected where I ended up today.
And after college, did you stick with the banking, or did you like venture out somewhere else?
No, this is also kind of a whole thing as well. So I wanted to try something new because I was already at the banking place for 4 years, and I was pretty happy there. Like I didn't know much about anything else. Like I would have been fine. Um, but I was like, I'm going to try something new. So I applied to a few places, and I took a job at a company called Rockwell Collins. They're like a military contractor. They basically do the programming for planes, like the screens, guidance systems, all that kind of stuff. So I applied for that, and I got a job on an internal graphics team, where we would like make the graphics libraries for all the different displays, which I thought was fun. It was new, sounded exciting, but at that same time, three of my friends introduced me to the startup world. Like I didn't know startups were a thing, and we participated in a 24-hour hackathon, which sounds terrible right now. I couldn't do it, but there was four engineers and a designer, and we ended up making a guided tour app, where like you as a tour guide could design a tour in your town, and then the mobile app would guide a person through it, directions, explain different things. And we made an Android app, the back end, and the website all within 24 hours. And it's something that actually Airbnb released like 6 years later. So we were onto something. But when we were in this hackathon, we actually then got accepted again. Oh, there's the game a few times actually. There's another story after this too. But we ended up getting accepted into an incubator for the summer after college for this idea. So I was working at at Rockwell Collins during the day, and then moonlighting on the startup at night. And it turned out the startup was a lot more fun because I was the mobile dev there. It was a lot more fun than working. Well, I actually got switched teams at Rockwell Collins. I got moved to the Blackhawk team, which was in a 4-year testing phase. So I only wrote 10 lines of code the entire time I was there. So I ended up actually just quitting after 2 months because I hated it. I was so depressed. It was not the place for me. And that was in Iowa. So I ended up moving back to Milwaukee. We got offers to get additional funding for our startup, but it turned out that none of us actually liked tourism at the time, and we were young and didn't really know much about traveling. So we ended up starting a software consulting agency instead. And I was the first one to go full time because I already quit my job. But when I had enough full time work, one of my friends then did work at night. When he had enough nighttime work, he quit his job and joined full time. So we dominoed all four of us into working at our agency in 8 months, I think. So we kind of like specialized in more of like the startup kind of world. And in Milwaukee, we're kind of like a big fish in a small pond because there's not really much outside of like .NET Dev or PHP in Milwaukee. So us doing mobile and that kind of stuff made us stand out a little bit. So I was part of that company with my friends.
And what year was this?
This was 2011. So this was the fall after college that we started this, and then we ran with that for 10 years. And I left November of 2021.
And what what was like your initial foray into mobile? Was it the bank, right? Or
So that's when
like mobile development?
the bank was when I like first started thinking of mobile as like as a platform. But I really got excited when I saw my first iPhone. Somebody brought the iPhone into my dorm room in college, and they were showing us Shazam, and I was like, right, Shazam, is that the
Yeah,
music one? Yeah. And I was like,
yeah.
that's insane. Like that's so cool. But I couldn't get an iPhone because I wasn't on AT&T. So I ended up getting an Android phone about a year later, and then started doing development on that. So I was originally an Android dev first from like 2009 until 2011. Um, my first, I think my first app on Google Play, it was in an SMS autoresponder, so like an away message kind of thing. So if you were driving, you could say, "Hey, I'll get back to you."
Yeah.
And that actually got like 20,000 downloads, which I thought was insane. So like I thought it was so cool that I could like just push out apps and people could like just use them on their phones. So I was pretty hooked to mobile after that. And I switched to iOS in 2011 when we started the agency because kind of needed to do both. So there I still did both, but I found iOS a lot more fun.
Yeah. And around that time, like the app development game was like booming, right? Like there was a lot of people who were wanting to build apps or had like app ideas.
Oh yeah. It was huge. Yeah, we were doing lots of mobile apps, not very successful ones, but yeah, I think at one time I was working on like 4 or 5 different ones at once, which at the time I was young, I had energy, I could handle it. I couldn't do it anymore. It was just too much to handle. But yeah, it was a pretty good time to do mobile dev because yeah, there was just so many different requests for everything. It didn't seem like every idea was taken. So yeah, we were pretty busy with mobile work for quite a while.
What was your favorite projects throughout that time?
So one of my okay. I have 2 client projects that were my favorite. One is a small one, one's a bigger one. And then we also had another startup idea, which was also pretty cool. But I think one of my favorite ones was actually for ice fishing. Are you familiar with ice fishing at all?
Not really.
No? Okay. So when you ice fish, you drill the hole and you can put a flag in there, and then when there is a fish on the line, the flag goes up. But usually have to be like seeing the flag, be close to it, can't be in your hut. So this one guy ended up making a little Bluetooth low energy device that would go on the flag, and when the flag would go up, it would activate the device, and then you get an alert to your phone saying, "Hey, you got a fish." So like it was super cool. So you could just like throw a whole bunch of these out, hang out in your little ice hut, and then just all of a sudden be like, "Okay, alert, let's go get the fish." So like that one was super cool because it was like a fun hardware project. It was for a very local startup because I was based in Wisconsin, so like ice fishing is a big thing. So that was one of like the fun smaller ones you got to work on. I worked on a app called Rex. It was like a recommendation social app. It had quite a bit of funding for a while. It was featured on the App Store. But it was basically like a social network where you just like pick things that you like, movies, books, plays, restaurants, and follow people on that, and kind of just it was kind of like in the form of Twitter, but like very much about things that you like, enjoy. So that one was awesome. It got really big. They had some internal funding problems eventually that it died, but that one was fun because it was more like an actual like big VC funded kind of startup thing that kind of we could ride along for fun. And then we had another startup idea, which was before its time, but it was called Tapper, Tappr, and it was a ordering app for ordering drinks at restaurants and bars. So you would, instead of going up to the bar, placing your order, waiting however long, you could just open your phone, buy a drink, wait till it's done, go up to the bar, show your phone, and boom, drink is all done. So we were in 13 bars in Milwaukee with that one. We got featured in a South by Southwest with that one. And it was super cool. It was before like Starbucks had their mobile ordering and all this kind of stuff. So mobile ordering was like a super new thing at this point. And it was neat because like you could actually order a drink while walking to a bar, so that when you got to the bar, it was there. And for me, I have a stutter, which, as you can tell, so like going to bars is my least favorite thing. Like I hate going up to them and like saying this is what I want. Like I can't do it. So being able to use my phone to do this was like just amazing for me. It turns out that working with bars and restaurants is not fun. It's a whole industry that you have to like try and manage. There was not a lot of responsibility there. Bartenders would often turn off the iPad behind the bar because they thought their tips were coming from the social interaction. When it turned out that through Tapper, our default or our like average tip percentage was like 23%. So like if you were doing drinks through this, you were actually getting a higher tip percent because it was just easier to do that. So after a few years, we just kind of shut it down because it was tough. In hindsight, we probably could have held on for a little bit longer and sold it to Square or something like that. But that was a fun one to work on because it was our own product. We were young. We can go into the bars to test things out. That one was one that I think we were also a little bit before its time.
And what caused you guys to like shut down the consulting firm?
So I left first. I just needed a change. I got a little bit tired of making the same like login screens and everything over and over again. I wanted to work on an actual product that can move forward, something that was more development tool related. So that's why I joined RevenueCat in December of 2021. Because that's kind of where my interests kind of pointed to now. Like I was using RevenueCat in my own indie apps for a year and a half at that point. And I just loved what they did, everything about it. So I was like, I think I want to join. So it was a tough decision to leave because the company had like 10 or 12 employees. So it kind of felt weird to like leave everyone. It was pretty much my entire professional career, put so much into it, but it just felt like it was time for me to leave.
And how was the shift into RevenueCat?
It was actually pretty seamless. Like I was already working remote. Like I said, I worked remote at my internship for like 3 years. I was working remote at my agency since 2016. So like from like a work environment standpoint, it was pretty much the same. It was different. Like it was a lot less stressful. Like having employees during the pandemic and trying to deal with all of that and like the PPP loans and everything, and worrying about where clients were going to come from and all that kind of stuff, while having one kid at the time was just a lot of stress that I didn't really want to have. So switching to a job where like I had less business responsibilities and can actually focus more on engineering and developer community and developer tools was really enjoyable and refreshing.
What would you say is the biggest benefit of using RevenueCat over something like StoreKit?
There are there's a lot. One, I mean,
Yeah.
the first one is, I mean, as a mobile developer and an indie developer, I don't want to do back end development or anything like that. I want to limit as much time I'm doing outside of like busy work and focus on my product. And my product in my apps isn't StoreKit. It's not dealing with App Store server notifications. It's not dealing with subscriptions and all that. My product is my apps. So if I can offload as much of that work as I can, easy decision. So like when I put RevenueCat into my first app, it took me an hour and a half to do. Now in new apps, it takes me 10 minutes. And so I'm saving 40 hours, 4 weeks of work doing all the StoreKit backend work, and any Apple migrations that that you have to do. And once you do one platform, with RevenueCat, the other ones are easy. So like if you are a cross-platform app, it's the same thing on each one, super easy to do, a few lines of code. Backend is all there for you. Like you don't have to worry about anything, which is super nice. So like you don't have to know StoreKit, you don't have to know all the subscription logic, you don't have to know billing issues, any of that. You just put a few lines in the SDK and you have subscriptions. So it really allows you to focus on your product and your customers rather than subscription stuff, which you don't need to be an expert in.
Yeah, I totally agree because I've been using RevenueCat for these last few indie projects I've been working on, and
Yeah,
like it's gotten quicker and it's very seamless and smooth. It's like once you do it like at least once or twice, like it's like a breeze integrating into your app, and then you have like the whole subscription
yeah, it's
set up.
insane. Yeah, like when we upgraded from StoreKit 1 to StoreKit 2, that was a huge change. Like it took our team a year to do, which we do have to like spend more time to make sure it works for every developer. But if you were doing that yourself, like that's a lot of stuff to pull out and rework. And when we upgraded from billing client 4 to billing client 5 for Google Play, that was 9 months of work for our team over like 4 developers, both backend and SDK. So like if you're an indie developer, you shouldn't want to do any of that. And it's nice to offload it to the experts, which I guess I fall under that now since I work for them, but I still don't feel like an expert. But we have an amazing team, so altogether, like it's so nice to use.
And how would you explain Fastlane to an iOS developer who doesn't really know what that is?
That's a good question. I always struggle with this one. So Fastlane is an automation tool for that you can use to do a lot of tedious tasks around mobile development, including building your app, taking screenshots, uploading to the App Store, releasing, and many other mobile tasks outside of that as well. So it is at the heart a scripting tool that has a lot of like plugins built into it that kind of take care of all this for you. So some of the things allow you to not interact with App Store Connect anymore. So you can just script things out. And the nice thing is your process is now written down. And so it's kind of like a nice documented process that you can put into your source control, so that anybody who needs to release an app, take screenshots, all this stuff. It's all there and it can get run automatically. You don't have to write out, oh, go click this button, do this thing. Everything is going to get missed. Like everything is there. Usually just run single command and it just does all the stuff.
And what's your favorite part of?
Like favorite part of maintaining or favorite part of using Fastlane? I think those are probably.
All right.
Oh,
both. We get one. You can do one at a time.
Okay. So I think my favorite part of maintaining Fastlane is just being around the community. Like the community is absolutely amazing. I've never seen a healthier open source community. Like usually when you go into some communities, some web development ones, like you're pretty intimidated. There's like some rude people in there that'll just bash you. Like I try and stay out of those. It's not really not really my thing. But like this community, I have had very few negative experiences. Everybody's just so thankful for like what Fastlane does in saving time, that like it's just full of great people. So like that's something that like not everybody gets to experience in the open source world, and it's something that like I personally enjoy in maintaining, because I get to see this community and know that like they're actually like good, healthy open source communities, and like that's a thing that people can actually do. My favorite part of like using Fastlane in my own apps is that I don't have to go to App Store Connect ever again. Like I don't want to go click buttons. It's not fun. Run one command and then things just work. Code signing, screenshots, uploading. Like I can like run a deploy command and then just go leave my computer, go cook food, hang out with the kids, and then the app gets deployed. Like it's just so easy.
Yeah. Oh wait, so like even for like uploading a test flight and like first getting your app on the App Store, it'll do that for you as well?
Yeah, everything can be automated from the start, including creating your app on the App Store, creating all of your certs, your app in the developer portal, writing or saving your metadata for like your title, description, all that stuff. Yeah, it can literally do everything that the App Store Connect dashboard does. But it does it in two ways. One, you can auth in two ways. The previous form was with Apple ID, which is the most powerful because we reverse engineer all of App Store Connect's APIs, but it's not super great that you have to give us that information. And with two-factor auth, you have to do the two-factor auth every now and then, so it is kind of annoying. But you can also do most of Fastlane's capabilities with the App Store Connect API key. The one thing the App Store Connect API key doesn't let you do is actually create a new app on App Store Connect for security reasons, which I don't really get because we already allow you to do that through the Apple ID. So might as well just allow us to do it more secure with the App Store Connect API key. But my radar on that doesn't get looked at. But yeah, you can do literally everything on App Store Connect with Fastlane.
Then that's something worth checking out then, because you set that up like once and it'll be like a smooth process for all your future indie apps, right?
Yeah, there's very, very few things that you ever have to like update. We make everything most times backwards compatible. So any Fastlane updates shouldn't break anything. If something does break, it's usually caused by an Apple API change or Xcode change or something, which we try and get fixes out as fast as we can. Sometimes they take longer. What one was it? I was dub 2020, where they released like a whole bunch of new App Store Connect App Store Connect APIs. And I think I spent like 3 full weeks rewriting the Deliver tool, which is the one that does like the pushing of everything from your app and metadata to App Store Connect. So that one, I think I got an initial fix out in a few days, but that was probably our slowest change, but it was also the biggest one that we really ever had to do. But most things are pretty stable now. Yeah, you write it once, you don't really have to change too much.
And what was your inspiration behind Deep Dish Swift, by the way?
So for everyone, who doesn't know, Deep Dish Swift is the iOS and Swift developer conference that I hosted in April/May of this year. So I've been into public speaking, which is also a weird thing because I've had a stutter since I was like 6. And I hate public speaking, hate talking in bars, restaurants, ordering food. But around when I was 25, I decided like I needed to start like working on this, becoming more confident in speaking. So I decided I want to like get into public speaking a little bit. So I started at my school, going back in to speak. I spoke at some local meetups, but then I wanted to go a little bit bigger. So I decided to start trying to speak at like developer conferences. So I started my first developer conference speaking in like 2019, and I did it for a few years, and like it was super cool to be able to like do that. Like I would have never thought I would have been like on stage in front of 100, 200, 300 people like saying words. It's just a very weird thing. So like I kind of have a big passion for public speaking because like it's this thing that I've overcome. And one of my favorite developer conferences was 360 iDev in Denver. And I last year I had to leave it early because my wife was in labor. So I left halfway through. And so like I came back with like this high of like I want more conferences because I had to leave, which totally fine. But it turned out that a few days later they announced that they were closing their doors. So at that time that was the last developer conference for iOS and Swift in the United States. So I was like that's not cool. Because AltConf was gone. Try Swift wasn't planning on hosting anything anymore. At the time, I think it was actually there was no more in North America because Swift Toronto also didn't announce anything. So like it was like a dead zone for iOS conferences. So I was joking with my friends. I was like, maybe I should just start one. But like before I start something, it needs a good name. So one of my friends thought of Pizza Kit, and I'm like, I do like pizza, and Chicago has deep dish pizza, but like it's not really like it doesn't really say much. So then I said Deep Dish Swift, and like that was it. Like that just felt so right. It was so interesting, but it was still like it felt Chicago, it felt Swift, it felt like very like indie feeling with a fun name. So I bought the domain and got an icon made, talked to my wife. I was like, I think I started a developer conference. And she was like, how can I help? And I was like, oh, okay. So like now this is like a family thing. So I would have not been able to do it without her. She did a lot of like the vendor stuff, all of like the stuff that I'm not great at. I was more of like the idea, social media marketing, speaker kind of things. So we actually worked on this together. And a lot of it was actually done right after our daughter was born, when we were both on our leaves from work. So we both had like 10 weeks to just work on this, which actually worked out pretty well. It was a fun side project while having a newborn. But yeah, so the inspiration was pretty much there was no conferences, and I wasn't going to let that happen. And it turned out way better than I expected. I was expecting 125 attendees or 150. We ended up having 312. We used up the entire venue and overflowed into some other spaces that they allowed us to overflow in. And yeah, it was a crazy experience. I didn't know how it was going to turn out, but yeah, and I think it's going to happen. It's going to at least happen again next year. I don't know if it's going to be a yearly recurring thing or just whenever I want to do it. It was super fun, exhausting. I just recently got unburned out from it. Like, I was socially burned out for about a month and a half. I couldn't do anything. But yeah, it was probably one of the best decisions I made.
What did you do to recharge?
I ignored a lot of social media for a long time. Like, I couldn't even do anything. So pretty much just didn't talk to anyone. And then went on a family vacation to Punta Cana and came back, and then I felt great. So I just needed, yeah, I'm a huge introvert. So like being like that on for that long was just it hit me a lot harder than I thought it would. Well, then I also had I had a RevenueCat team offsite the following week, and then I went to Miami for Google I/O Connect after that. So I think those two trips afterwards too probably also added into my exhaustion. But yeah, it's most likely going to happen again next year unless weird circumstances happen.
What were your biggest challenges for when putting it all together?
The biggest challenges were the AV vendor was kind of a whole thing. When we initially booked the place, they gave us a price sheet, and we put the prices together, and we're like, okay, we can do this. And then we booked the place, and then we talked to the AV vendor again, and they gave us a whole different pricing scheme, like magnitudes different. Like just to be transparent, like we were expecting like $12,000 to $15,000 in AV costs for speakers, projectors, power, Wi-Fi, that kind of stuff. This was the in-house AV provider. The initial quote they gave us was 70,000, like 70000.
Damn.
And I was like, that is absolutely insane. These projectors and microphones and Wi-Fi is going to cost like double the food of all the attendees. Like, that makes no sense. So we ended up going with an external provider that was much more reasonable to what we expected, but we still had to pay the in-house provider for Wi-Fi and power. So we went a little bit over in our estimates, but I ended up getting more sponsors, which ended up actually working out well because I loved having all the sponsors there. I think the attendees all enjoyed talking to the sponsors. Like, it actually made the hallway a little bit more it made the hallway track a little bit more lively. So I think it ended up for the better, but definitely look at all of your costs before agreeing to a place. That was one thing I learned.
Then who came up with the logo? Because the logo is pretty impressive. Like, I like the Swift bird and then the pizza slice.
Yeah, so that was actually Matthew Skiles. If we could drop him in the show notes, but he's done a lot of icons for indie developers. I first saw him doing a lot of Apollo icons for Christian Selig, and he did one of mine. And I reached out to him. I was like, do you do like conference logos? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, I'm starting a conference and I have no ideas, but it needs to involve Swift, Chicago, and pizza. And that's all I gave him. Like, I didn't give him any doodles or anything, just that. And then like 3 days later, he sent me that, and I was like, that logo is just perfect. So yeah, I was a huge fan of his work, and even more of a fan now. But yeah, I had no ideas for the logo. I wasn't going to come up with anything even close to that. So I'm super thankful that he was the one that kind of created all that.
And was that? I'm guessing those few days were like a breeze, right? Like they just flew by.
Oh yeah, yeah. It was weird how fast they flew by. I didn't really get to sit down too much during those days. I think I started sitting down the last day, but we had some AV issues the first day because it turns out that there's a length limit to how long HDMI cables can be, and our external AV vendor didn't know how far the computers were away from the projectors. So we had some AV going in and out because the HDMI was too long. So the first night they had to swap out HDMI for SDI, SPI, something like that. I don't remember the words, but basically higher quality cables that don't lose their data over length. So that was stressful because things were going in and out the first day. And then I was just stressed the second day because I wanted to make sure everything was still good.
Yeah.
But the third day I could finally relax a little bit. But yeah, I'm hoping next year when we have things a little bit more smoother, I can actually like sit and watch everything.
Yeah, yeah. Did you even get some sleep?
No, I didn't. I did not. I tried to socialize and meet as many people as I could. So yeah, it was a few hours of sleep each night, which it's fine. I don't feel the pain from not sleeping anymore. So it was
Yeah.
it was all fun.
How did having children impact your activities as a developer?
I get to spend a lot less time developing, but also it's totally worth it. Like I think I was too into it too much. It was all I did. And I think it made me a little bit more more productive and thoughtful in like the development that I actually do. Like when I was doing it, I was just doing stuff like I don't even know if I was learning. It was fun. I just felt like I had to do development now because I have less time to do it. When I do it, like it's actually it's more on purpose and for things that like I actually like want to do, will improve me, or like things I can make. So it's not just it doesn't feel like I have to do it all the time now. And a lot of like some of the things that I've done development have like been inspired by my kids or for my kids. So it kind of gives me like a new area to like make things for. Like I got an app that I haven't released yet that's called Playpen. And it was for my son. He would take our phones a lot. And he liked to watch he was watching Sesame Street, or I actually like to watch videos of himself, but like giving him access to the phone and watching Photos app, like he could delete stuff, but I could also so then I started putting it on what's the guided access mode. But like guided access mode, you have to like unlock, lock, unlock to like keep replaying things. So I ended up making Playpen, which was an app that you had like mini activities in it. So I could configure YouTube videos of himself to just watch over and over again, and then control it through my Apple Watch. So like he was locked into Playpen. I could change what he was watching without having to like steal the phone from him, unlock it. So that's something that I wouldn't have made ever if it wasn't for him. And it was my first Apple Watch app too, which is something I've been wanting to make. I just never found a reason to use it because I didn't have a reason to use my watch over my phone, except for when my son had my phone. So like, it definitely provides like it's a lot less time for developing, but I feel like when I'm developing and making things that actually matter to me now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's made you more thoughtful in what you're like spending your time on, right?
Exactly, yeah.
And when are you planning on releasing it, the playpen?
I was planning on releasing it January of this year, but then I started Deep Dish, so that took some priority over releasing an app. And then I got burned out, and then so yeah, it's still there. I still use it. I'm just trying to figure out like how I want my time to be in the future. Like, do I want to actually release this app and like try and make it work and then maintain it, but then like that's like unknown amounts of time that I have to like support when like family has priority. So I'm not sure like if it's something that I want to pursue. But I'm also working on making a fishing game, which is something more personal to me. That I would much rather like keep working on that and releasing that. Just because like my kids, I mean, they're 2.5 and 10 months. So like this app that I made it can be used by them for a few years, but I worry like after they're old enough, like then do I still want to work on it? And do I want like, I don't want to like, I don't know if it is my long-term app that I want to maintain. So I think that's holding me back from releasing it at the moment. Or I could just put it out there for free and not care. But I'm trying to like divest all the things that I'm currently doing to just try and like make it more time for my family and myself, and a little bit have less stress about things I have to maintain in my head.
Yeah. That's good. Maybe there's some developers here who also have children who maybe they like that idea. Maybe they'll reach out to you.
Yeah, I mean, if somebody wants to help me with it, release it, maintain it, like that seems fine. If I don't have any plans to do it, might as well release and have somebody help.
And you mentioned earlier that around age 25, you kind of decided to kind of step out of your shell and overcome the stutter.
Yeah.
So what caused that? Was there like any particular event or?
I think I like at that time, like that's when I started doing Fastlane and like getting into like the mobile dev community, and I had like so many things that I wanted to like say to other people like through meetups or conferences that like I was too scared of not being able to physically say it. And that was it just felt very depressing, like having all these cool thoughts, things that I want to share, and like I couldn't actually share it. I mean, I could do a blog post and stuff, but like I wanted to actually like go out and meet people and talk about this stuff. So it just got kind of like this, like I was tired of carrying this weight and this fear of like how people would word here like see me if I stutter. Like, am I still an expert in this material if I can't talk about it? So there was like a lot of fear in that. But I had this realization that if I like, I'm more comfortable talking to people that know I have a stutter. Like that relaxes me. So I started, when I do talks, that's the first thing I talk about is that I have a stutter. Like that's like my first slide is explaining my stutter and like how it affects me, what I can do, what I can't do. And that relaxes me and allows me to like keep talking afterwards. And if I stutter, people know to expect it. They're not confused why like I'm blanking out on stage, like it's expected, and then I actually stutter less. So for me, it's nice that like I can get that out of the way and explain it. But I think it's also been an inspiration to other stutterers as well. Like after I've spoken, I've been reached out to by a handful of other people with speech issues that feel like they want to go do the same thing now. Like, hey, like this is the thing that like you did. I think I can do this too. And like I want to like try and inspire other stutterers to go talk, because like it's not, well, for me, it's not as scary as I thought. Like being on stage is a very different talking environment than like talking to people face to face. Like I think I breathe and project my voice in a different way, where I actually stutter less or don't stutter at all. So like it's kind of cool to like discover all these things over these years that I wish I would have known throughout middle school, high school, because it would have made things a lot easier then. But at least I discovered that now.
And what was like the first steps you took when you decided, oh, I'm gonna try to overcome this?
The first one was I actually did a blog post, kind of like explain that I have a stutter and like how it affects me. And it turns out a lot of my friends and like family didn't know about it, because I like hid it so well. I hid it behind not talking, or behind like not really talking about anything serious, just like talking about like things on the fly where like I knew I wouldn't stutter. So I wrote the blog post and posted it on Facebook and Twitter, and like got a lot of positive feedback on it. And like a lot of people were like, I didn't know that you stuttered. So like that was the first big thing, was essentially like coming out to everyone like, hey, this is an issue that I have that I've been struggling with, but I'm ready to be more open about it and overcome it. So I'll link you to that one too, if you want to throw that in the show notes as well.
Yeah. I saw it's on your blog, right, on the site.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's one of my first blog posts actually.
All right. Thank you for coming on the show, Josh. Where can the people find you?
Thank you for having me. And I can be found at Josh D. Holtz at most places. So at Josh D. Holtz on Twitter /X, whatever it's called these days. At Josh D. Holtz at mastodon.social. I believe that's what it is. At Josh D. Holtz on Threads. What else am I on? At Josh D. Holtz on GitHub. But then my website is joshholtz.com for some reason. I should really fix that. But all my things are linked together, so it shouldn't be too hard to find the rest after you find me in one place.
All right. Oh, and quick question. I saw on your Twitter you have the arm emoji and the rocket. So is there a story behind that, or is that just...
So the rocket is Fastlane. Always been Fastlane's like thing. And then the muscle is one I've been using for a while. I was a gymnast for 10 years. And then I was a cheerleader for 4 years, and then I did rock climbing. So like the muscle use, the use of the muscle emoji kind of comes from like those three things. So that's kind of my like thumbs up, let's do this emoji. And yeah, that rocket is Fastlane's emoji. So I just kind of combine them together. I use that a lot in my Fastlane pull requests when I approve them. So that just kind of comes with me everywhere I go.
Yeah. Thank you for tuning into another episode of the iOS Dev Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, make sure you guys like, comment, share, subscribe, and consider sending this to a fellow developer. If you want to support the show, you can leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and even consider joining the Patreon.